Everyone officially meet Mazzy, my 3.5, 4-year-old Mustang mare from Maverick Medicine Herd Management Area in Nevada. The first clip that was on here is from their first time ever out together. They had met each other between stalls and through the fence already, and then this here is just another time when I had first gotten her where they went out together in the big pasture and decided to play and be silly. To get the full effect, let's go back to the beginning. So I got Mazzy from a wonderful lady in Leeds, Alabama named Babby Steislinger. She gets Mustangs and does a lot of them for the tip training program, as well as she just really wants to find them good homes that are a great fit for them. Once we got our house and it had some land and was almost pretty much ready for the horses, I knew that I wanted to get Stark a pasture mate, and I wanted a Mustang, as well as hoping to get one that could do pretty good at dressage, that had a great mind, didn't care what it looked like as long as it had a great mind. So I started looking into picking up at facilities, and the closest to us is like 11 hours away, I think, in Ewing, Illinois, which was not an ideal option, especially because it was December, so I didn't want to drive the trailer through snow and all of that mess. So I started looking into the internet adoptions, which can be pretty chancy because you never actually get to meet the horse. You see a clip of them in a pen, some photos, and you decide from there. So I reached out to Babby to ask her what her experience had been with it, with internet adoptions, and she told me kind of her spiel on it. They've had good luck with it in the past for the most part. And I told her what all I was wanting the horse for. So something that my husband could eventually ride once I started it and trained it, as well as having a great mind and being a kind horse. And I really want to be able to pursue dressage down the road and not just like, you know, the general fitness stuff. If possible, I would love to go to shows representing Mustangs, and Stark is the horse that I like to have that represents rescue horses. But anyways, so I want to be able to do hopefully high or higher level dressage. And so Babby says, well, I have this one horse and I haven't really shown her to everyone. She's kind of my heart horse. I wasn't looking to find her another home. I was gonna keep her for myself, but I know that you would be a great home for her, and having her and you out to represent Mustangs and what they can do would really make me happy. And so she started sending me some videos, a bunch of pictures, and I was like, I don't know, I kind of want to pick this one myself, and I really wanted to start completely from scratch. So Mazzy had already been halter trained. She was leading, she was doing some groundwork. She's super curious, so like obstacles didn't bother her at all. She would walk onto a trailer behind you. She wasn't like trained to tie or anything yet that I am aware of, and she did not pick up her feet very well yet. She had not had them trimmed, which is fine, not a big deal. Anyways, I told Babby that I wasn't sure, but I would think about it. And then throughout, I remember that day very vividly because I couldn't think about anything else other than this Mustang mare who looked very similar to my little Starky boy. And so I messaged her back and I said, I'm going to talk to my husband about it. And, you know, I am very interested. Please don't show her to anyone else. And I was so worried she was going to show her to someone else because I guess in my heart I had already decided that Mazzy was going to be our horse and we were going to work it out and go pick her up. A couple weeks later, my good friend Petra and I went up to Birmingham in the trailer to go pick up Mazzy. I gotta say, my first impression of her was that she was pretty freaking short. Like, I knew she was smaller. I didn't care too much about that, but she was a little smaller than I envisioned in my head even. Then I went to catch her and she walked away from me, which wasn't a big deal. She only walked like probably 10 steps and then was like, okay, I guess you're just gonna stick with it and whatever, you can catch me. And she was like just so sweet. She's such a sweetheart. I absolutely love her personality. She's really silly. She is a bit of an introvert. I was kind of thinking she was going to be an extrovert, but it's not a big deal. It just changes the way that I approach a lot of things with her. Anyways, so we arrived at home and Mazzy was mine. She went to her stall. I kept her in there for a couple of days and turned her out sort of in my 40 by 40 pen. I wanted to make sure she knew where she got her food from in her stall, as well as that I could catch her in a small area before turning her out into our bigger pasture. It is so important to make sure you can catch them first and that they know where they get fed. Once I knew that she was catchable and at the very least would come in for feeding time, I turned her and Stark out together and they did fabulous. The only thing was Mazzy, I guess, had never really experienced hot wire, so she started eating grass really close to the wire, like kind of underneath it, and she zapped herself in the ear. And Stark was standing close by, and I guess in her mind, Stark had somehow gotten her. So she chased him through the pasture for a couple of minutes, like squealing at him, teeth bared. She was not happy that he bit her in the ear, even though it was not him, it was the electric fence, but I thought that was pretty hilarious. Then the next things I did were get her ready for the farrier and get her used to being handled. We worked on a lot of groundwork with the signals that I like to teach horses and getting her used to all of that so that she could get her feet trimmed because they were pretty long. Since Mazzy wasn't the first Mustang I've ever worked with, or untouched horse, I guess, I have experience in the past with getting horses used to having their feet touched and worked on. So the first thing I did was I used leg ropes, which helps keep me safely away from potentially kicking feet. I also, of course, got her used to just having her legs rubbed and touched and groomed, and just got her really, really comfortable with all of that, and taught her a signal to pick her leg up. Then I got her used to getting her feet picked out and treated her for thrush because she had a lot of it. And the next thing I did was I talked to my farrier and asked him if he might have a spare rasp so that I can get her used to the feeling of having her feet rasped. And then I just started rasping her feet every single day, at least twice a day usually. And by the time she was ready for him, it actually went very well. She was a little nervous because I didn't have another person that she didn't know or wasn't familiar with that I could have pick up her feet and do those things. So he spent a little bit of extra time with her, and just she was nervous. So he got her used to him, he picked up her feet for him, all of that stuff. And finally, one day he asked me how I pick up her feet, just to see, and I dropped the lead rope, and because she ground ties, I went and picked up all 4 of her feet to show him kind of how I approach it. And he said, okay, well, why don't, instead of you holding her, just drop her rope and we'll have her ground tie for me. And she did perfectly. So it was great. And I think the last time he came out, she actually said he was the best horse she had done for him all day. Mazzy's first ever saddling was pretty eventful. This was before I had her, and I don't think she really knew kind of what to expect, and we have worked really hard to get her relaxed. So once we established some basic groundwork, I went to work with just a saddle pad. We're starting really small and we will build up from there. I'm just throwing the pad on and off of her, trying to get her to relax, having her move around with it on her back, and just seeing how soft and relaxed I can get her, because that's the biggest thing for her, is relaxing and not having tension. Once she was pretty relaxed with all of that, I graduated her to a little dressage saddle and started practicing putting it on her, girthing it up, just letting her relax. Here, she looks like she's pinning her ears at me a couple times, but she's actually got flies that are bothering her. And yeah, so just putting it on, taking it off, lots of repetition, and just letting her get used to everything again, and relaxation is the main goal. So to see relaxation, I want her neck nice and long. I want her to look relaxed and not tense. Relaxed ears are good, paying attention to me is great, and not trying to like speed off or anything like that. She won't have a worried look in her eye. And one other thing is they'll tend to kind of blow out their noses. And yeah, she did fabulous here. She got a little nervous. I think one of the chickens made a noise or something. And then she met the chicken and decided it wasn't so scary after all. She also had practice wearing a bareback pad, being ponied with a Stark, bonding with Brian in the pasture over getting scratches, loading and unloading from the trailer. In preparation for riding, I teach them how to two-line drive. This teaches them how to turn and keep going at the same time and respond to the appropriate types and amounts of pressure easily and softly. Before this piece here, I had put the pad on her and off of her, jingled the girth around, put the saddle on her without a pad, and then I went to putting the pad with the saddle on and just having her stand still and not have a lot of tension in her neck, and she did beautifully here. The first few times that I do up the cinch, I don't do it very tight. I just want it to comfortably sit there, and if you tighten it really tight, a lot of times they will blow up, and I don't want that. So here, once everything was settled, I just kind of asked her to walk off, and she took a few steps that were not that she was humping her back up and curling it a lot, but she wasn't relaxed yet, and all I wanted was just a relaxed walk. So we worked on it for a little while. I think this session actually lasted about 15 or 20 minutes in total. And she got to the point where she was so relaxed that I was able to get a little bit of trotting in, and she stayed nicely relaxed as well in that. So I was super happy with it. Another thing I'll do is I'll kind of have them stop, and I'll do things like drumming on the seat of the saddle, using my stick and string on the saddle. Sometimes the noise freaks them out. I like to lift the stirrups and shake the stirrups around and kind of lift them and drop them a little. Like if I were in the saddle and I lost my stirrup and it bumped them, I really don't want them taken off over something like that. And I like to also take my stirrup and practice with a hind quarter yield, sideways, and a front end yield, just kind of bumping the stirrup gently where my leg would fall when I'm in the tack to ask. All of that is really good prep for before you get up in the saddle, and then they have some associations with having those buttons already on them, so to speak, so that when you ask, they kind of have some form of reference to go off of. So all of that is just a general preparation for getting Mazzy ready for me to climb up in the saddle. When I do climb up, I intend to actually do so bareback. Even though she may look like she's ready for me to climb up there, I don't anticipate doing so until I'm like 500% sure it's gonna go fabulously. I want to set her up for the success the best that I can. When I finally climb up onto her back, I plan to do so bareback, probably with a bareback pad, only because I have a really bony butt, so I feel sorry for horses when I ride bareback. And before I even do that, I'm going to have all of this groundwork stuff like 500%. I want walk, trot, canter, stop, all sorts of stuff really solidly, especially the 2-line driving. So yeah, now you've met Mazzy, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video.
How do you like your Mazzy?
She is perfect. Am I okay too, Mazzy?